Eventually. Welcome. This is Ruthie of Ruthie K's and Anna of RK Artisans and Ruthie K's. As we explained before, Anna is pretty much the head of our RK Artisan sections of Ruthie K's Inc., which is dealing with alterations. And then we have two stores. One is going to be Ruthie K's Signature, which will have women's tuxedos, fancy vests for both men and women, and eventually we'll have like flower girl dresses and little boy suits. So that's going to be coming out. I keep talking about that because that's going to be coming out pretty soon. We're going to start advertising for that store. It's been in the works for a long time. And we have RK Artisans, which is a store inspired by my mother, who retired and is now making aprons and tablecloths and cloth napkins and things like that. So you really need to check out that site. It has some incredibly great stuff. We also have books from my mom. Anna is also a self-publisher. So she's been helping my mom publish some books. Her grandma published some books. So we'll be talking more about that as we go along. But today is part 2 of weddings, because wedding season is coming. Many of you are out there are buying your wedding dresses now, and you have a lot of questions. So we're just trying to touch on those that enter into your alteration side in particular. So be sure and check out the first wedding podcast. For actual alterations, that season is May through August, especially here in the Pacific Northwest. Do check if you're in another state or a different part of the state, because we're over next to the coast. If you're like in Spokane, your wedding season may be a little bit different because the weather is different. In the Pacific Northwest, our best kept secret is that some of our best days are in August, September, and October, especially the beginning of October. June can be pretty rainy. So, different areas have different times when people prefer to get married. I know the classic one is June. What we're looking at is when to get what your wedding dress, what to look for in your wedding dress, and especially with alterations, when to start alterations. We will talk next week about if you're having your dress custom made, because that's a whole different timeline that you need. But with actual just alterations, what we want at Ruthie K's is to get you in 8 and no more than 10 weeks, unless you really insist, before your wedding. I know it seems like if I get in now, I bought my dress now, and my wedding's in a year or 6 months, then I'll get it all done and I can relax. Until you get to 2 weeks before your wedding and you try on your dress and something's changed. You may have lost weight, you may have gained weight, you may have changed weight, you may have had a life event, because we see a number of women that are pregnant anymore, and that can make a huge difference. And nobody's casting stones, so it's just a change in what your alterations would need. That's the only thing we look at here. And so we like to get you in 8 to 10 weeks before your wedding, because then we're finishing up your dress 2 weeks before your wedding. Then if we have changes, we have 2 weeks to make other changes on it. So that's where we stand at Ruthie K's. A lot of people are different. And the other thing is, if I alter your dress 6 months from your wedding and something changes and you need another alteration, you're going to have to pay for it again. If we're still working on your dress, then you don't have to pay for anything we've already determined needed altered, only something new. So if I'm taking in side seams and they're not in enough or they're in too much, then we just go in and take them out. And at Ruthie K's, that's the same cost. Not every alterationist is going to look at it that way. Okay, so be aware of that. Now, what we're really talking about today, though, are options. We have many different options right now in wedding gowns. And if you go on to Reels or at the wedding sites, they're multiple layer because there's been a big trend, especially right before COVID and after COVID, of people wearing more than one wedding dress. Sometimes I've altered up to 4 that are being worn during
One wedding.
the wedding. Yeah, one wedding. Sometimes it's because you have multiple days. Sometimes it's one for the reception, one for the party time, and one for the actual wedding. So that's 3 wedding dresses. I had one bride who actually did wear 3 dresses because she wanted to incorporate her grandmother's dress, her mother's dress, and her own dress. So there's a lot of different reasons for that.
We've had a few customers who it was part of their heritage and their culture as well to change dresses throughout. So that was a lot of fun too.
Yes, and a lot of those, their wedding lasts for like a week.
Yeah.
So there's lots of options for weddings and lots of cultural differences. And that's why we have right now so much more than just a plain wedding dress. And for a long time, until Kate and Prince William got married, Princess Kate and Prince William, wedding dresses had no sleeves and they were all strapless. So what do you do with that? And that's still a big thing. We still see a lot of that, but we are seeing more shoulders. We are seeing more sleeves. Sleeves can be pre-made and added. Sleeves can be put on permanently. Sleeves can be put on to where they can come off. For example, many of my Catholic customers and friends that have got married in the Catholic Church, there are certain criteria for the Catholic Church to where you have to have coverage, and that includes your arms. And so the sleeves can be taken off for the reception. So that's one of our options. There are other religious beliefs that shoulders have to be covered into the cap of the arm. Some of that to cover a specific undergarment, some of that to cover because of a modesty reasoning. And all of these are good. We just have to have different options, right? And you could go into the store and all you see is a bunch of strapless dresses, or you see a bunch of sleeveless dresses, or you see a bunch of dresses right now with a lot of décolleté. Probably not pronouncing that right. French is not my best language. But you're seeing a lot of the center of the body between the bust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very low V's.
Very low V's right now. And if you don't want that, that doesn't meet your own criteria, you could just walk out and say, I'm never going to find a dress. There's so much we can do with that. We can add in a matching piece of material. And a lot of times you can get that from your bridal place that you bought your dress from, and then take it to your seamstress and they'll be able to put it in. And no, you don't have to use the seamstresses at the bridal salon. If you have a seamstress you like, then use a seamstress you like. So, but we can put in a piece that fills in that spot. Then you still have the look of your dress. You could put in a contrasting piece to add a little color. You could put in another piece of lace over a matching color that goes in there. A lot of times people are looking at covering shoulders. So again, there's jackets, there's boleros, there's capes. A bolero is a short jacket that comes right under the bust and doesn't always close in the front. It often doesn't. It has just a shape to it, and it should fit to where it kind of hugs you, not really loose like a box, which is what a lot of people think of from the 1980s. But there's many other options to do with that as far as boleros go. If you look in some of our pictures and pages, you'll start seeing some style sheets, and some of those will be showing you that. The bolero or jacket is really can be made to match the dress. It can go to your waist. It could be a jacket style. It could be a top style. I'm seeing some reels with some extremely cool tops that are buttoned on or pull over your head that cover the top of your dress, changing the look of your dress. So, as well as modesty, which is where we'd use something a little thicker. We would have more covering. We can use lace. We can use net with beading to make a top that goes on top of your dress so that it changes your dress, and then you can take that off. There are skirts to where if you have a straight skirt, you can get a overskirt that's gathered with your train on it. So your train, literally, you unbuckle your skirt and your train comes off. There are so many options like that. You can have a long dress for the church service, and then you take that overskirt off and you have a knee-length dress or a short dress. And it could be full, just like your dress, or it could be narrow. It could be ankle length, calf length, knee length, street length. It could be a mini dress for your party. The options are incredible. And you need to do your research in just looking and looking and looking. Reels are really good. Pinterest.
Yep, Pinterest.
We love Pinterest. And there was one other one I wanted to mention, but now I can't remember it. But your bridal shops, ads, your brides magazines, even online as well as offline. But there's
Etsy?
so many
Is Etsy a good
options.
place to look for those kind of options?
Etsy can be a good place to look for those options. Yes. Very good. But we have linings that can be put in. The backs this year, what I'm seeing is backs are all sheer. We can line the back of your dress. Last year, the fronts of the dress and the backs were sheer, and I've lined a number of dresses in the last year because people just weren't that comfortable with that much sheer. Capes are a huge thing, and that's adding your train to a cape. Serena Williams just had pictures out of a dress that I think it was her dress, but I'm not sure. I didn't pay as much attention as I should have. I was looking at the dress and, connected Serena Williams with it, but it had a cape that was shorter in the front and went back into her train. And then when she took it off, she did happen to have a strapless dress that this cape went with, and it was very lovely, very lovely. As far as veils with your dress, you can have the veil be your train. You get a long cathedral veil or even a little shorter, then you can use that long veil as your train. When we come to veils, you can have a hat with a veil attached. You can have a crown with a veil attached. Crowns, of course, are awesome, and who doesn't want a crown? There are bands that have Hannah's raising her hand. She didn't want a crown, but she actually had kind of a crown.
Me and my husband both had crowns. We had little
That's
like
right.
Celtic circlets.
Yes.
We were both very royal.
Yes, very much so. You can use a pillbox hat. You can use a floppy hat like from the 1970s. You can get a antique hat from the great day of hats in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Awesome hats back then. I'm a big hat person. And they have pillboxes and flat hats. I have a flat hat was made in Japan with real feathers and the netting across the top. It's awesome. So there's just so many, many options. I haven't narrowed it down a ton for you, I know, but I just want you to know that there are options. And if you can think of it, you can actually find somebody to do it for you if it's not already done. Okay. The more pieces you have added is also going to increase your cost. So you want to, and we'll talk about that at another point too, is budgeting your alterations. Because you want to add that into your wedding budget.
So here's a question for you, Mama, what are some of the more fun alterations like this, adjustments that you've made in the last year?
Let's see.
I can think of one that stuck out in my mind was it was a cathedral veil, so it ended up being her train, but you added
yes.
the royally navy blue.
Right, we added the
lace
blue
along the
accent lace to it. Yeah, I spent days cutting that lace out.
It was gorgeous. but yes.
It was. It was beautiful. That one was truly fun. I also actually work on finishing garments, the insides and the linings in particular, for a local designer here
Yeah,
in Tacoma, Washington. Her name is Portia Nakia. She is awesome. She is
she's wonderful.
awesome. She does a lot of form-fitting dresses, and they're custom made. They are custom made. And so when you go on her website, portianakia.com, when you go or on Instagram, look for Portia Nakia, you'll see that a lot of them have skirts, and she has been playing with pants, jumpsuits
Oh,
for
fun.
wedding gowns, and then having the skirt that goes on top of the pantsuit. And I know that that's one of the things she's looking at is those options. She also has done some that are big, big. If you that was a fun one we did do. I think it was this last year where it had like multiple layers of skirt, and then it was on top of a hoop skirt. It was big. It like took up the whole middle of my living room.
How many
That one
layers
was
did we end
awesome.
up with that? It was
It had like 5 to 7, and then the hoop
of the
skirt
heavier
under
tulle,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It was very fluffy. And
It was very fluffy.
with that one, if I remember properly, you layered some silvery tulle in with it to make
That
it
was a
just a
different
little
one.
sparkle. Oh,
She
okay.
she already that one was fun too, and we added a corset back because of the fact that this was a pregnant bride,
Mhm.
and she was going to be about 5 months along and wasn't sure how
How
much
much
she
she'd
would be
show.
showing, but she loved this princess style dress. It already came with 7 layers, and then we added 5 more. And one of those layers was a silver tulle, and then another layer was a sparkle.
Yep,
And then we covered it with the white sheer. It was gorgeous. It again took up the whole center of my living room.
it
And
did.
that one didn't have a hoop skirt under it. That was all held out by the net on it.
Hmm.
Another one was a 30-year-old dress that this bride had bought at Nordstrom's 30 years ago, and it was beaded and pearls, and it was a straight dress. It was just straight, and it had a tank style top and sleeveless, and she brought it, and it was higher in the neck and the back, and she was saying, everybody's telling me I need a corset back, and it's like, this one's not corset back material, not really. We'd have to change the whole back for that to look right, because you don't want a corset back that goes all the way up to the neck. Well, actually, I can think of a design that might work on, but it's not always the answer. So we added in nude pieces under the arms into a V that went down to her waist. And we were able to bring that dress out to her current size. And she was beautiful. It was amazing and totally fit the mode of today. And having that nude strip down the side was absolutely gorgeous. So I guess those would be a few of my favorites without talking bustles, which we'll talk in a whole nother podcast. Let's see. Have I gone over? I'm just checking the different options here to see
Tip
that I've
point.
gone over. We've talked about jackets and capes being things, linings, sleeves added that can be detachable or sewn in. Um, any of those are options. We can add corset backs if you like them. You could even add actually a corset, a loose corset that would go and lace up the front of a dress. I could see that being an option and maybe attach that to a skirt. That would be a way cool option. Um,
Just recently, we had, as far as talking about accessibility alterations, we had a bridesmaid, but this could also be done for a bridal gown, I think, depending on the gown, that needed to be able to breastfeed her baby. So,
yes. So with the bridesmaid's dress, we just attached snaps on the shoulder, and it had a slit
It had the slit sleeves, so that was,
sleeve. So
yep.
it was a slit sleeve at the top that was very floaty. And so we were able to just add the snaps to the shoulder so she could just pull it down and snap it back up on each side. So that one worked very well also. And that could work in a wedding gown as well. Um, Non-traditional wedding gowns are definitely a thing. And with non-tradition, we had our bride with the veil that we added the navy blue lace to, but her colors were her cream, maroon, and that navy blue. So we added navy blue there. We changed the corset to a red
Mm-hmm.
with red laces, and it was beautiful, very beautiful. We have another bride who found herself glittery slip dress, very 1920s-ish, that she's wearing. And we've added shaping to it because it was a very straight slip dress. So we added shaping to it with darts. So again, there's so much that you can do and choose to make your dress perfect. We've had people wear fur capes. We've had them wear fur jackets.
Cousin Carla's pauldrons, which you did not make, but you helped with the cape off of
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah, that one was awesome. That was a number of years ago, and it was a niece of mine, and she wanted her train to be attached to the pauldrons, which she made. And pauldrons are metal shoulder plates that are armor, and she made them out of metal,
She
and
did.
they're
She made them to look
layered.
like dragon scales. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
think Game of Thrones. And then we attached her cape to that hung down her back. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, that one
The
that
other,
was another awesome one.
the other one that was from the last year was your purple bride. That's who else I could remember, just off the top of my head. We added lots of beads to her dress with
Yes,
butterflies and bows.
we did. We added butterflies and bows. We added 1-inch bows all down the slit.
And it was a white dress, but the beads and everything were crystalline
And then we
purple.
had little 1/4-inch butterflies we put in just arbitrarily around all the beading on her bodice. It turned out really lovely. And then she had a bridesmaid whose dress that she loved was angled from left to right, and the right side was very mini, and she's like, yeah, not at my wedding. So we added sequins underneath to bring the dress down to the level the bride liked, and that looked pretty amazing. So again, there's lots we can do to alter and to change your dress to what you want. The key is buy your dress as close to what you want as you can, fitting it to the biggest part of you, because it's always easier to take things in than it is to take things out. Most people will tell you, oh no, fit your bust. Not always.
Not
Sometimes
if you're
that's
not
not
busty.
the part that needs fitted. If and that way, and remember, even though you have larger hips than your bust per se, doesn't mean you can't wear a fitted dress. We just need to fit it to you. So if you're pear shaped is what they call it, then you want to fit your hips, the hips and the booty, fit that part, and then we bring everything else in to fit that. And yes, slits are a big thing right now. We can put slits in dresses. So that's one of the other options that you can look at. So I think I've given you probably way more options than you'd like. So you might have to listen to this a few times to get them all. But there are options, and a seamstress should be able to help you with all of those options.
So
So,
as far as one more question for you.
yep.
As far as the fashions of last year and versus this year. Last year, the big alterations that we ended up doing the last 2 years was corset backs. Yes?
Yeah,
And there
corset
was
backs are always
they
have
had a big
always been
upsurge
there.
in popularity though.
Yes, and a lot of that has to do with the fantasy genres being very popular, uh, Renaissance fairs, cosplay, and there are a lot of corsets in those. Also, everybody just assumes the corset back is the way to go to make your dress a little bigger
Yeah.
or able to fit multiple possible sizes.
So heading into the next year, do you see any trends yet? I mean, it's still early, but of what's you'll be doing most as an alteration?
Well, the top things I do as an alteration are hems.
Mhm.
And you do pay by the layer, my friends. You pay by the layer. And we'll talk more about that again in budgeting. Um, sides. Sides are big. This last year, we did a lot of bust reconstruction because everything is very contoured right now.
Mhm.
And so, if it's contoured to a larger cup than you have, we have to take that apart and decrease that. Adding corset backs, sides, bringing in the V on how did you say that, Anna? Décolleté?
Décolletage,
Décolletage. Um,
which might still be wrong, but that's how.
so those are the main things.
And that's what
Yeah,
you expect for the next year still.
yeah, maybe more sleeves coming this year. And I think we might see more linings because things are still very sheer in the bodice. They
And
mainly just using the bra cups to cover the girl bits.
I've noticed in formal wear in general, more sheer skirts are actually becoming more vogue right now. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the next year.
It will, though. I haven't seen that in wedding gowns
Okay,
in
that's good to know.
particular. And definitely looking at more pieces to your wedding gown so that you can change the look of it. Okay, this is Ruthie and Anna of Ruthie K's Inc. And we've just been talking to you about part 2 of options for your wedding gowns. Well, talk to you later. Next time we'll be talking about budgeting your wedding gowns, what you have to look at.